Hi there, welcome to Body by Design. My name is Sheridan, and today I have a prenatal gentle flow for you. This flow is designed to accommodate your changing body and your growing baby. A few props that you'll need is 2 blocks, a bolster, and if you don't have a bolster, grab 2 pillows, grab a blanket, and let's get started. All right, so we will begin laying on our backs in a propped up position. So using blocks, we will create a little bit of a lift for our backs. So I do 1 block flat, 1 block up. You can really change the level to whatever is the most comfortable for you. And then place your bolster like so. You could also just pillows, prop them up. And then coming on over to your back side. We'll keep those knees bent if you are more comfortable with your legs straight, or even another blanket or pillow underneath your knees. You can try that. So coming into a comfortable reclined position, what works for you, what works for your body. And throughout this whole practice, I just want to encourage you to listen to your body. I'll be offering some suggestions for poses that are comfortable, but you accommodate however you need to. Getting into this comfortable position, begin to shut down your eyes. Slow your breath. And then take one hand, place it on your belly. You might feel your little one wiggling around right now. I know I do. Begin to use this time to connect with your tiny baby. Acknowledge your baby's presence. Finding a slow rhythm. Noticing each little flutter. Spend a moment thinking a happy thought, baby. How much love you have for your baby. You can spend this time saying a simple prayer over your developing baby. Continuing to let the rhythm of your breath move slow, controlled. Remind yourself here that you are in control of your breath. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the nose. Let's take just 1 or 2 more deep breaths in here. Last deep breath in. Slowly begin to open your eyes. You can release your hand from your belly. And as we lift up, move as slow as you need to, using your hands for support, or maybe rolling on over to your side to slowly press all the way up. We'll swing those feet around. Move your props to the side. We're going to come into a seated forward fold stretch with wide legs. So you probably won't really need your blocks here. You may want your bolster though. You could actually use a block to place in front of you to set your head on. So I like to separate my legs pretty wide. You could even just do a hip width or mat width. I'm going to put my bolster right in front of me, leaving some space for my belly. Finding a deep inhale, lifting up tall through the spine. And then exhale, gently stretching forward, just kind of stopping when I feel a stretch. And then try to relax your forearms. Relax your forearms either to your bolster, to the floor, whatever works for you. And you should feel a stretch through the backs of your legs. Still trying to keep that spine tall so you're not rounding, keeping that core activated. And just releasing into that stretch. Let's find 2 more deep breaths in here. Exhale, sinking a little bit deeper. 1 more good breath in. Beautiful. Exhale, slowly rise. All right, moving that block or bolster to the side. Go ahead and bring your legs in together to an easy seat. So sitting here, if you have a lot of tension in your hips, something that really helps is placing blocks, pillows, anything underneath your knees so the blocks take the weight. But if it's comfortable to sit like this, then in a comfortable seat, whatever works for you. On your next inhale, lift up tall through your spine. Find a deep inhale, reaching both arms up to the sky. And then on your exhale, we're going to take a little side stretch. Be careful here with your side body. Reaching your hand to the floor or to a block, try to lift upward and then stretch over. So you feel that stretch through your side body. If that hurts, just stay lifted. If that feels uncomfortable, stay lifted, release, come back to a seated position. If it does feel comfortable, try to reach as far as you can, finding your deep breaths, trying to stay open through the chest, staying open through the front body. One more deep inhale. Exhale, slowly release. Inhale, both arms back up to the sky. Exhale, switch sides, stretching all the way over to the opposite side. Breathe deep here. Let's take one more inhale. Exhale, slowly release. Take any other stretches you want to here. We try to avoid twists, but if you want to do just like a tiny little twist side to side, a tiny little twist. And then once you're finished with your seated stretches, begin to make your way into tabletop. And in your tabletop, if your knees start to hurt, take a blanket and place your blanket underneath your knees for cushion or even underneath your wrists. Try to get your shoulders right over your wrists and your hips right over your knees, keeping your knees fairly wide. With your next deep inhale, look up to the sky. Begin to gently stretch your stomach. This may look a little bit different than if you've ever done cat and cow before your pregnancy. You might not be able to arch quite as much. Listen to your body here. Does that feel comfortable for your abdomen? Does it feel uncomfortable? Anytime it feels uncomfortable, take a pause. And then let's round through the spine. Look down to the floor, not necessarily crunching, but just finding a tiny arch through the back. Beautiful. Deep inhale, look up and stretch out your stomach in a gentle way, lifting hips upward, chest upward. Stop when you feel your tiny stretch, and then gentle rounding through the spine. And I'd encourage you to go through cat and cow a few more times, moving at your own pace. If you want to find some of your own movement, try taking your hips side to side, holding cat or holding cow a little bit longer, maybe even dropping your hips slightly down or pressing your hips slightly forward. What movement feels good for you here? Not straying too far away from our tabletop. 1 or 2 more breaths wherever you are. And then we're going to melt into child's pose. Now, child's pose may or may not be comfortable for you. It may put a lot of weight on your knees. So the first thing we do need to do is take our knees about mat width apart. Now, if you're comfortable with this, just go ahead and rest down into child's pose. If that doesn't feel uncomfortable, maybe you feel some tightness right here, like your belly is pressing up against your inner thighs. Take your bolster, place it underneath your hips. That way your hips just kind of sit there on the bolster. Leave some space for your belly to lower down. And then I like to take a block. I actually need to scoot the bolster a little bit further back. And then I like to take a block and just kind of rest my head on it. And so what I've found is child's pose, it takes a while to find something that's comfortable for you, especially when your body changes each week. So I'd encourage you to play around. One other option is to horizontally underneath your bottom, like that. As long as that's not putting too much weight on your ankles or heels, keeping those knees wide. And then once again, resting forward, maybe forehead all the way to the floor or forehead to a block. Just listen here. Make sure you're not compressing your stomach. You're keeping those hips open, keeping those hips as lifted as you need to. And this is a great way to release some tension from the lower back to open up the hips. Last deep breath here in child's pose. And let's slowly rise. So at any point during our practice, if you want to come back to child's pose, you're always welcome to. All right. We are going to make our way into downward facing dog. Especially if you're feeling any pain in your wrist, or you're just not feeling like doing downward dog, stay in your child's pose or stay in any of the poses that we've already done. But down dog is a great way to stretch out the backs of your legs. So keeping everything nice and wide, fingertips wide, feet wide. Go ahead and curl your toes, lift your hips upward, and then you can keep a slight bend in your knees. Gently begin to press your heels into the floor. Feel a stretch through the backs of your legs and your calves and your hamstrings. This is a great strength building pose. So we're going to hold for another count of 5. 3, 2, 1. Now finding a deep bend with your knees. This is where we don't look so graceful sometimes. Slowly walk your feet up towards your hands. Notice my feet are wide. We're in our wide stance. If your hands start to come off the floor, grab onto your blocks. If your hands are touching the floor, great, you can keep your hands there. Otherwise, let those hands rest on a block. Keep those feet out wide. Mine are wider than my mat. Keeping your spine kind of tall, not completely rounded, enough space in between your legs for your belly. Find a deep breath in, and then exhale, sink deep into your forward stretch, as deep as feels comfortable for you. And if you are comfortable with this, grab opposite elbow with opposite arm, hang heavy, releasing some tension through your spine. So listening to your body here, you've got some options. Pick which option you like best. Hold for another 2 to 3 breaths. Beautiful. On that last breath, we're going to take an inhale. And as you lift up, use your core, flatten out your back. First, I like to just take my hands to my thighs so I'm not putting too much pressure in my back, and then just kind of slowly rise from there, keeping that back tall. Awesome. Now, turn to your side. Well, it doesn't matter which way you're facing. I'm going to turn to my side so that you can see my legs. We are coming into a wide stance. We're going to do one strength building pose. Just set your blocks in front of you for now, or your pillow. Now turn your toes outward. This is our goddess pose. We're going to find a deep inhale, reaching arms to the sky. And then on your exhale, open your arms in this cactus position. Slowly bend your knees, lowering down. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Maintain your balance. Deep breath in. Exhale, sink a little bit deeper. Now on your next inhale, let's reach back up. Exhale, sink. Opening through the hips. Inhale, reach. Exhale, sink. One more time, just like that. Inhale, let's reach it up. Exhale, sink. Awesome. Holding here, you'll feel those inner thighs working, your quads working, building some strength. This is great. Your next option is garland pose. It's a little bit more intense, probably the most intense pose we'll do today. Option 1, stay here, work on your strength. Option 2, go back to that forward stretch. And option 3, we're going to come into garland, and I definitely recommend having your blocks for this, especially if you've never done this before. Take your blocks so that they're right under your bottom or your 3 pillows. Walk your feet in so that they're about hip width apart. Keep those feet turned out. Find an inhale, reach your arms up to the sky. And then exhale, you don't have to go down in this graceful way. You can take your hands to your hips, do whatever you need to slowly lower your hips down to the floor. Now I've got really flexible hips. If you're noticing tension, just stop. You don't necessarily have to copy here. Oh, but this is a great pose. We're opening through the hips. Lift your chest. This is a great way to prepare your hips for labor if it's comfortable. And then using those elbows, try to press your knees open. Lift tall through the spine. Once again, staying in whatever position works for you right now. If you're in garland, you can even remove the blocks if you don't want the blocks. Finding your breath. We'll hold garland for another 3, 2, 1, and then getting up. Doesn't have to look pretty. I'm going to use my hands. If you want to use your inner thighs to lift all the way up, you can. Otherwise, you can use your hands for a little bit of support, reaching all the way back up. And then we are going to make our way back down to the floor. Okay, so coming to the ground. We are going to move into a outer hip stretch. Pigeon pose is a very intense pose. And you may notice that your ligaments are feeling super loose. The only reason I wouldn't necessarily recommend pigeon is just because you might not be used to how loose your ligaments are, and pigeon is a very intense, kind of like a weight-bearing pose. You're putting a lot of weight on your hips and on your knees. So you can try pigeon if you want to. I'll show you real quick what pigeon looks like. We've got one knee in front in between our hands, one leg extended straight. If you do pigeon all the time, then just come here. And then it's also super helpful to take a bolster underneath your hips. That way the bolster takes some of the weight and you can stay upright. You can drop to your hands or your forearms. But that's our pigeon pose. I'm on the right side. My second option, which I would recommend a little bit more depending on what stage you are in your pregnancy right now, whatever is the most comfortable for you, to stretch those outer hips. Take right leg, right ankle, cross it over your left leg, keeping it straight. And you've got a little hole right here for your belly. Gently stretch forward until you feel a stretch. You can reach for your toes. If you're in pigeon, you're just holding, you're working through your breath. If you're in this figure four stretch, you're reaching forward to however far you feel comfortable with, maybe even using a strap or something to help you reach towards your toes, towards your calf, trying not to squish your belly, but staying upright. Let's take one more deep inhale wherever you are. And on your exhale, slowly rise. If you're in pigeon, just kicking that right leg from underneath you to tabletop or to down dog. Figure four on the left side, we're going to take left ankle, cross it over the right thigh. Deep breath in. Exhale, stretch forward. And if you're in pigeon, you're moving into pigeon on the left side, same thing. Let's find an inhale in your figure four, lengthen through your spine, lifting up a little bit taller. Then exhale, stretch a little bit deeper. Really feel that there on your outer hip. Let's take one more breath. And exhale, release. All right. Moving to bridge pose. We're going to do a supported bridge pose. So getting into bridge, if you want to use bridge for a strength building pose, you don't have to use your props. It's totally up to you, but you do want to be careful of your low back, making sure that you're not straining your low back, putting too much pressure on your low back. So really listen to your low back there and let the focus be on either strengthening your glutes or your hamstrings, depending on where your feet are positioned. So let's see, I'm going to move that second. So I'm going to come onto my back side, keeping my knees bent, lowering down. Anytime you come onto your back, just make sure you press your low back all the way into the ground, setting those feet to the floor. And then slowly lifting the hips up. Now I'm taking my bolster, or you can take your block, placing it underneath my hips. That way my hips are just resting there on my bolster. If that's uncomfortable, move it to the side, come into that first position that we started with. If it is comfortable for you, if you feel comfortable in bridge, one little option we have here to strengthen our glutes is to, you're lifted a little bit, is to take your hips and just lift them like an inch or less than off of your bolster, and then drop them back down. So it'll probably barely look like I'm moving, but I'm just lifting my hips up a tiny bit, dropping them back down, squeezing through my glutes, lowering back down, lifting and lowering. Let's do two more. And last one. Awesome. In that bridge pose, take one more deep breath in. Awesome. Exhale, slightly lift your hips, remove the bolster, and then begin to slowly roll onto your right side. You can roll onto your left side, whatever way you are facing towards the camera, whatever side is comfortable for you. And we are going to prop up for our final resting position. So this is actually a good time to have two bolsters or two pillows, but instead I'm just going to use a blanket. So I'm going to lay propped up on my side. I'm going to place my blanket in between my legs and just slowly lower down like so. If you have a bolster and you want to place your bolster in between your legs or a pillow in between your legs, you can do so. And you want this pillow that you're laying on to be relatively soft so that it's not digging into your side. Find a comfortable position for your arms. Take a moment to shut down your eyes. And take that hand back to your belly. Spend a moment coming back to connecting with your baby. Take a moment to thank yourself for taking time out of your day to attend this practice. Doing good for your body, good for your baby. Allow your breath to continue to slow. I encourage you to continue to rest here for as long as you'd like. That's all I have for you today. Namaste.